Been miserably cold in the Midwest. So we thought we would bring somebody in from the South that maybe we could live a little vicariously through this week. And who better than our three-time now guest, Mr. Texas himself. Can't wait to talk to him about what's going on in the photography world, adventure trips, and a little bit about why he may not hunt as much anymore. I'm Brandon Butler.
I'm Nathan Shags McLeod.
And I'm Russell Graves.
Welcome to the Driftwood Outdoors podcast. Russell, great seeing you again, buddy. Loving the beard, man. Looking fantastic.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
I'm excited to get into what you're doing now, but first we have to do a little self-promotion. If you're listening to this, you are officially invited to Big Rock Candy Mountain for the opening day of trout season. This is the third year we've done it, and it's all about trout fishing. Big Rock Candy Mountain will be there that Saturday, February 28th, leading into opening weekend. And for spring lodging discounts, just enter Spring 26 at checkout on their website so you can get some deals. I already got lined up. I've been talking to Roger there at Big Rock. We're going to have the man, the myth, the legend himself, MVP, Mark Van Patten, back on the podcast talking trout fishing. We'll have our good friend Billy Smith talking smallies on the river we no longer speak of. We'll have special guests. I mean, it's open to the public. So we'll all have dinner together, and then we're going to go into the event space, and we'll record a podcast with everyone. You can get your questions answered. We're going to talk everything fishing, everything Missouri, everything we love about the Ozark. So be sure to get your spot now at Big Rock Candy Mountain for opening weekend. It's going to be a good time. I can't wait, Brandon.
Man, it just seems time just keeps going faster and faster, and we mark it by all these different anniversaries we have. And as much as I look forward to each of these days, it's like, how is it here again already?
Right?
Like, we were just there, man.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited too. It's great.
We're only a couple of weeks away.
I know. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. We've got, I'm looking at my calendar. It's kind of crazy. I'll be out in Yellowstone snowmobiling, going to the Hoosier Outdoor Riders Conference, going to the CFM Media Camp. We've got quite a few other things going on. Opening day of trout season. Oh, I'm going ice fishing up in Devil's Lake, North Dakota in a couple of days. It's like, I don't know why I built this big house, man. I should have just bought an RV.
Well, I did want to tell you too, before we get into this, I was talking to my mom on the phone today, and she was like, "Oh, you're recording a podcast?" I was like, "Yeah, we're doing it here shortly." And she goes, "You need to tell Brandon how much I enjoy his 50 and 50 adventures," because she's like, "I know it's more targeted toward the outdoorsmen, outdoors women when it comes to hunting and fishing, but especially this last one when we're talking about the wild horses out east." And she goes, "He does such a good job of describing the surrounding areas that just someone like me that likes to go on vacations and look at beautiful places, that I'm just marking all these joints on my calendar, and I can't wait to go see them myself." So I was like, "Oh, Brandon will eat that up. You know how much he loves hearing good things about what he's doing. So I'll be sure to tell him."
Well, that means a lot to me because I want to create something that resonates with people like your mom. So thank you, Connie. I appreciate that very much. And if you want any more tips on that island, you might be able to just come stay at my house because I love that place so much. I could move there. It was truly just one of the coolest places I've ever done one of these adventures. So, I tell people it's very much my goal is to be very much like Anthony Bourdain in the sense that he used food to connect to people and places. I'm just using hunting to do the same thing. And ironically, Russell is who got me my Texas state check mark when I shot a Rio at his place. So helped with my World Slam and checked Texas off. And what a better way to get one of those states out of the way than to be with a guy who truly loves the state he lives in, has explored it from top to bottom, written about it, just really, really wants people to have an affection for the state that he loves so much. And meeting those people all across the country is what this has been about. And it just keeps getting better. Now that I'm getting closer to the end, I really know what I'm looking for. And thank God I just keep finding it.
Oh,
100%. I
I'm
thought
sorry.
Russell was going to say something
I'm
there.
sorry. No, I'm sorry. I thought you were teeing. Were you teeing me up? I just thought you were gonna. I thought Shags was next. I'm sorry.
No, nobody's next. But
Oh,
yeah, I guess I was teeing you up a little bit. That was a perfect experience when I came down to your house, and we bounced all across North Texas. I do have one big regret, and that's we didn't take the time to go down to Larry McMurtry's bookshop while he
yeah,
was still alive. I
yeah,
Looking back, I would have burned those 4 hours when we could have.
yep, yeah. I can't remember what year was that. Do you remember?
No, it's
Yeah,
been it's been 6 or 7 years ago, probably.
it's been at least prior to 2000. Well, I think it was the spring of either 19 or 18. And the reason why I know that is because we moved from out there in 19, so it would have been a year or two prior to that. So it's been a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
7, 8 years.
yeah, like you said, I mean, my whole professional life, adult life, I've spent, not only getting people to love Texas, because to me, there's a tale of two Texases, especially right now with the way things are changing so much. We got so many people moving into our state. We ask them all to come as missionaries. I mean, as refugees and not missionaries, because we kind of like the way it is, especially us in rural Texas. But you have a tale of two Texases. Actually, you have a urban Texas, which is always going to be urban Texas, but the part with which I'm most fond is rural Texas, because I've spent my life growing up in the country. Uh, I live a mile from where I grew up right now. For 26 years, I lived in the Texas Panhandle. Brandon, you've been there before. It's a remote place. It's an out of the way place. It's a place that no one thinks about, but those places have something special to show the world. And so that's what I've always loved doing, is whether through writing and telling stories or photography or speaking events or whatever I do, just telling the story of out of the way places. Like you say, like Anthony Bourdain used food to share those out of the way places with people. You use hunting. I feel like it's my life's mission to use photography to to
Well, I'd say
to
you're
to
fulfilling that
to
mission pretty well.
to, to share those places with people.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that experience, and can't wait to have that chapter in the book. That's
Yeah,
what
I'm
it's
I'm
all
gonna
about.
I'm gonna I'm gonna plug us a little bit here, but that whole experience got immortalized, memorialized in a Gray Sporting Journal shortly thereafter. You remember that?
Oh, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yep.
that's
I
right.
can add that to my male modeling resume. Speaking of, I'm just going to go ahead and get this out of the way. Speaking of immortalized, I think you had a little Freudian slip there because you were reading my mind, because I am now immortal in the lore of Purdue basketball fans, because I went to the Purdue basketball game at IU a couple of nights ago. I guess by the time this comes out, it'll be more than that. But it was heartbreaking. The Hoosiers are, always a tough team to play because the rivalry is so intense. I mean, it's a really intense rivalry between Purdue and IU. And going back to when I was a kid, when it was Bobby Knight and Gene Cady, that was just as good as it got. We've had Matt Painter for 25 years or so, and IU's had a coaching carousel. But this year I used down, and it should have been an easy game after Purdue lost one to UCLA that they shouldn't have lost, and then they lost to Illinois, and that was just a great game. And Illinois came out on top and deserved to. Well, we were supposed to go into Bloomington and kick their butt, and we didn't. So I'm mad. Spent a lot of money on the ticket. Couldn't believe it was happening. And towards the end, we were making a run, so they needed to come out and pump up the crowd. So they brought the T-shirt cannon out and just boom, 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 shot off all these T-shirts into the crowd. And a cheerleader was just like holding one last one back until the cannon went off. And when that last one came flying, it was just all by itself in the air, and it was like slow motion coming to me. And I reached up and just made a perfect grab on it, and in just one fluid motion, just chucked it back out onto the court. I caught I thought to myself while it was in the air, I was like, if I was at a baseball game, I would throw that back. and then I caught it and I threw it back, and instantaneously half of the arena booed me all at once. I was getting 5 to 10,000 boos like cast down on me, and I had sat down in my seat because I thought, oh shit, man, maybe I'm gonna get booted for this, you know. But as soon as they started booing me, I jumped up and gave them the double fist bump and just yelled Purdue. And my friends thought it was cool, so that was fun. So
Were you
I'll
in
never
Purdue
probably.
gear?
Oh yeah, we were like 4 black dots in the middle of a red ocean. You know.
I am a collegiate nonpartisan because where I went to college, little bitty small East Texas school, it's a blip on the collegiate radar. So, but I will concede, Indiana's kind of having a moment right now.
Oh well, Signetti came out on the court before the game,
Yeah.
looking like a extra from The Sopranos in a nylon tracksuit, like head to toe. And he's just dropping that Pennsylvania accent, sounds like he just crawled out of a pub in Pennsylvania. I mean, I just love that guy. Like, I can't wait till they make the Signetti movie. It'll be like that Kurt Warner movie. He said the other day, if he was smart, he would retire. I don't know. How do you top this season? It's kind of like going out hunting and killing a 200-inch buck in your first year, Not that this is even close to his first year, but it's the first year anyone ever had these sort of expectations for him, and he pulled it off. But there's a lot of NFL coaching jobs available right now, and if I were him, I'd be looking at that $10 million a year money up there in the big leagues. But
I saw one quote where he said that, well, I'm staying here and we're going to make what Nick Saban did in Alabama look like child's play. Like he wants to just run the table every single year. And I'm like, holy smokes, this guy.
That's bold.
What he's like, Google me, I win.
Yeah.
So, dude,
It takes a special kind of dude to rock a flat top when you're 60. He's had the same flat top for 40 years. So
yeah, I mean, good for him. I mean, good for all of them. I mean, that's what I think. I'm not a hater when it comes to that stuff. I just love excellence, and those guys look like they, at least for this year, figured it out.
Well, so what I like about it is none of them were 5-star recruits. I mean, NIL was used to put the team together, but that's every team today. That's the argument against them. But it wasn't like they went out and bought 11 Ferraris. They went to the used car dealership and picked out the 11 vehicles that they needed and put a team together and motivated them, like putting a chip on their shoulder. And then they just went out and steamrolled people, man.
Well, and I love too that their quarterback was from Miami. The D-back that caught the interception was from Miami, and their whole dream was to be a Hurricane, and Miami paid them no attention. And then they got to go down to Miami and win the national championship against the team that they wanted to play on. Like you're talking about, man, this was just a made for the big screen movie in the making, and it's incredible. And even though they stomped my Oregon Ducks terribly, I was rooting for them in that game because they saved me thousands of dollars from going down to Miami for the national championship.
Your Ducks and my Boilers. I think Purdue waved a white flag at halftime, and it's just embarrassing at this point what IU's doing to us.
I'll throw one more layer onto that. I mean, I just again, I'm a college nonpartisan. I mean, I don't care who wins each and every year, but the fact that they bring that, what's his name, Mendoza, the quarterback,
yeah,
they bring that dude in, and he's about as quirky as they come.
I mean, Tim Tebow Jr.
Yeah, good on him. Good on him for the cool kids not winning for once. Yeah. I mean, the non-cool kids not winning for once.
He seems like just an amazing person. Like Tim Tebow. Like he just doesn't fit in with the college football crowd. Nope. He's literally going to church every weekend and
doesn't seem like a killer when it comes to, the competitiveness, just wants to go out and have fun and serve his God.
His numbers weren't killer either. None of his numbers were through the roof, but it was just the leadership of the whole experience. He took that team.
And when it counted, he was there.
And what a story too about his parents. I mean, his dad always staying seated because his mom is dealing with, is it MS that she has?
Yes, MS.
MS, and she can't stand, so he doesn't celebrate by standing up. He stays seated down. I mean, it's just like this family just seems too nice, like too perfect. They're They're pretty incredible. It's wild.
But his little brother got out of town though. His little brother was like the quarterback in waiting. And he's like, you know what, man? I'm not gonna try to follow that. So good on him. Go make your own name somewhere else. I wish you all the best. I think that was a smart move. But yeah, sometimes the good guys win. And it seems like that's what happened this time. At the IU Purdue game the other night, I don't know if you saw it, but people were dissing Miami pretty hard, and I don't remember what pages I was on, but I threw up the old Catholics versus Convicts T-shirt from when Notre Dame played them back in the '80s for the national title, and they had made cornfields versus convicts T-shirts at IU, and people were wearing them around. So I thought that was a pretty creative, yeah, cornfields versus convicts.
And again,
Well,
it's the outdoor podcast that talks college football for the first 15 minutes.
I'm trying to make a transition right here, so hang with me. I think the last time Russell was on the podcast, he was working for somebody else and leading adventure trips that were based around photography, going to Alaska, going all over. And like good entrepreneurial Americans do, he straight up stole the plan and started his own. Today he's no, in all seriousness, he has branched out on his own, and he's leading these adventure trips and teaching people photography. And it's so cool because it's essentially hunting with a camera. That's what he's doing. He's taking you out into the field, not only putting you in the right place to capture the photos, but helping you with the technical side of taking the photos as well. So for those of you that love the outdoors, love to hunt, don't love to hunt, love photography, either way, I mean, these trips are for you, and I'm excited for him to tell people about what he's doing, because we got a lot of fishing and hunting guide friends, but we've only got one photography adventure trip guide friend. So Russell's cornered the market.
Well, I don't know if I've cornered the market, but I'm having a good time doing what I'm doing right now. So it's been a lot of fun. But let me clarify something. I didn't steal anything. I didn't steal anything. To your point, I did work for another company, and those guys are a lot of good guys. And it was, I learned a lot from them. I want to think they learned a lot from me at the same time, because it was a growing company at the time. But, like it happens a lot of times, the company was growing faster than I was willing to kind of follow along with it. And I just realized at some point that, if I was going to be happy, I needed to make myself happy. I couldn't serve two masters. I couldn't make myself happy, or I couldn't serve multiple masters. I couldn't make myself happy. I couldn't make clients happy. Couldn't make a corporate entity happy. And so at that point, I just decided it was kind of time to do it on my own. But before that, as you know, Brandon, how long ago was it that you and I met? I mean, it's been a while
15
now.
years or so. Yeah.
Up
in
at
Michigan.
Least. Yeah, up
on
in
a
Michigan at
deer
least.
farm. For all of you out there that want to always crucify me that I've never been on one, I met Russell on one.
Yeah, and so at that point in my career, I was shooting a lot of commercial work and getting invited to those media stuff, and doing work not only for the outdoor media, but also for the corporate part of the hunting and fishing space. And that was right after a career from being a teacher, where I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but I was I'd won just about every award you could win as a teacher here in Texas, and had a really successful career doing that, and could have retired from it. But for a lot of reasons, I decided to step away from that career. And, along the way, I'm doing corporate work, I'm doing editorial work for the hunting industry. And then, I finally, I meet a guy by chance who's got this burgeoning company, who's doing these outdoor photography adventures. Again, think about hunting and fishing outfitters, but take away the gun, take away the rod, put a camera in your hand. Same sort of concept. Met a guy that was doing that. I fell into that and thought, instantly, I'm pretty good at this. I think I found my niche. It combined my love of photography. I've been doing photography since I was 17 years old. I sound old when I say it, but almost 40 years I've been taking pictures of stuff in the outdoors. And my love of the outdoors and my love of photography and my love of wild places, and combined it with my abilities to communicate about the whole thing and teach and be around other people and just share the love of the outdoors with other people and get them where they're kind of get them where they're excited about it. I just thought that was sort of an infectious thing to do, and along the ways, uh excuse me, I mean, I decided that again, I mean, that the direction that company was headed and the direction I thought I should head eventually kind of led to a break point. And so 3 years ago, I just decided to step out on my own and start doing these adventures on my own. And man, I've been blessed. We've been we spent 2023 trying to figure it out, or I'm sorry, 2024 trying to figure a few things out, kind of got our feet underneath us. 2023 we spent trying to figure a few things out. 2024 we started traveling international, but as soon as 2024, I think we hit our stride. We did 4 or 5 countries last year, spent a lot of time overseas, spent a lot of time in the United States, not only in Texas but elsewhere. And 2026 is promising to be even greater, and then 2027 I'm even scheduling for that now. So it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing again to take people who are primarily not to I say this with all the love in my heart, to take people that are primarily not traditionally connected to the outdoors, suburbanites and urbanites, people who live in the cities all over our country. That's typically who I get. And typically my demographic skews, I'm almost always the youngest one on my trips. And so they're people who are older, who have the time and the money, who just want to experience the outdoors and then come away with some good pictures. I think I found my niche. It's been incredible since I've started doing this on my own.
Well, explain what one of these trips actually is. Like, just I'm going with you, pick a location, and just tell me what I can expect on one of these trips with you.
Well,
and real
one
quick,
of the,
what's the company called?
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for that. Yeah. So our company's called Hackberry Farm Workshops. Hackberry Farm is the property I live on here in Northeast Texas. Uh, I struggled with what to call it for a long, long time, but I had a lot of good advice from a lady who used to be a marketing exec for Nike and Intel. And she told me, don't try to be anybody you are, just be yourself. And I took that to mean I got to be myself because everybody else is taken. And so, with that thought in mind, I just leaned into the fact that I'm a rural Texan. I grew up on a farm and ranch. I love the country. I love everything outdoors. I don't have to come up with some kind of exotic name like wayintheoutdoors.com. I just need to lean into who I am and who I am as a country boy who grew up on a farm. And so this farm that I live on has been in my family for 50 or 60 years now. I mean, a long, long time. And it's always had one tree in the middle of a field that shouldn't be there, but there used to be an old homestead by that tree, and it's a hackberry tree. So when I bought it, I named it Hackberry Farm. So hackberryfarm.com is what we named it. And Shags, to answer your question, one of the things I pride myself on is we offer trips all over the world. They're all inclusive. All you've got to do is get yourself to and from the meeting place. We take care of everything in between. Take care of the meals, the transportation, the lodging, the gratuities, all the details that makes a trip successful. We do everything in between. And so, to expound on that a little further, there's when you're teaching photography and when you're spending time with people in the outdoors, it's kind of like if you can imagine spending time with anglers or hunters, and the fact that there's a variety of experience levels. I mean, there's some people, like when I brought Brandon down to Texas to hunt Rio Grande turkeys, all I needed to do was provide a spot for him to go. I didn't have to teach him anything. I didn't have to teach him how to call. I didn't have to explain anything to him about why we're doing what we're doing. I just had to say, this is where we're going. Let's go out and get it done. And so there's a lot of people in photography that are like that. But there's a lot of people who are kind of just new getting into it. They're not rote beginners, but they're kind of learning, and they're in their learning journey. And so really for me, what I try to do, and I think to a lot of success to this point, is try to design trips that are really good for everybody. Whether you're experienced and you've been out taking pictures in a lot of places all over the world before, or you're kind of getting new in your journey and learning how to take pictures in the outdoors, I think what we do really appeals to everybody, and it's no matter who goes, and I'll include myself in this, no matter who goes in your experience level, you always come away learning something in the end. And so one of the things I try to do, again, if we can use the great Anthony Bourdain as an example, I try to make myself an expert on every place we travel, whether it's Costa Rica or Botswana or Childress, Texas. I try to have a lot of good stories to tell and a lot of interpretive narrative to bring to the table where when people show up, it's an all immersive experience. It's not just, we're going to show up and take pictures and we're going to do it as kind of a third party, sort of an outsider looking in. We become immersed in whatever the local culture is and the local norms and the local scene. We become immersed in that and we become a part of it because I learned a long time ago, once you take that approach and you kind of get people bought into the idea of, Children's Texas is a cool place to take pictures of cowboys. Once you get people bought into that, they see it and they understand it and they learn a little bit something culturally from it, and then they want to go on the next one. And so it's been, again, it's been a blessing to be able to share the outdoors with people and find sort of what my mission is in life. And I really think I found it at this point. I found my mission in life to introduce people to the outdoors, to introduce the people to wild places, to introduce people to rural places where people like me live. And in the end, just get them to give a damn about it. Just get them to care about it.
Man, there's a couple things going through my head right now. And, I think you and I talked offline, but, things have really changed in a way that I just can't help but seeing God in a lot of these paths. And I think about knowing you as long as I have and the different steps that you've taken to get here, things that you named off is you had to be a teacher to learn how to teach. You were a writer and a speaker to learn how to communicate. You got into photography. You combine all of those together and your just innate love of traveling and your ability to hunt wildlife. It's like you had to learn all of those different things to culminate into what you're calling your life's purpose. And now, like, you're introducing so many people to nature non-consumptively, and you're giving these gifts that you've been able to develop to all these other people. And it's so much more than a job. It's a vocation. It's a calling. It's, man, for lack of a better word, it's just really beautiful to see somebody so passionate about so many different things take all those pieces that have been laying on the table and fit them together perfectly the way they belong, and then to share that with other people. I'm just really happy for you, man, because you and I both talked in depth about beating our head against the wall trying to figure out how to put it all together, and you pulled it off.
And I appreciate what you said, Brandon. It took me a while to figure all that out. I really did. I mean, because I was telling Shags before we got on, it just, I had to learn to really, and I still have to learn this, to get out of my own way because, I tend to overanalyze things and try to put my hands in too many things to try to be involved in really everything. And I got to a point, and I think this is where age really helped me. I got to a point where I had the maturity to just understand, just do this one thing, whatever it takes, do this one thing.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, and it's growing every single day. And I don't know where it's going to stop. I mean, I hope it grows to be something really, really big. And I don't say that for financial reasons. I say it for just passionate reasons. I think one of the things that I really have felt like it's one of my missions, whether anybody asked me to or not, uh, someone's got to speak up for the rural people, because rural people, especially, I love Texas, but one of my critiques of Texas right now is this, the urban areas that are kind of calling all the shots on how things go. And as a result, rural people are the ones that kind of take, they get the raw end of the deal on a lot of things. And so, one of the things I've always tried to make people understand is there's a lot of really smart, capable people who live in rural Texas. They don't live there because they're a victim of their circumstance. They live there because they want to live in a small town and they want to live in a place where they know their neighbors' names. And they want to live in a place where, if well, let me tell you this story. when I was an ag teacher back in probably the mid 2000s, I got offered a job. It was six figures. I mean, I'd have been the highest paid, one of the highest paid teachers in Texas at that point. And I thought about it for a while. It was going to almost triple my salary. And I thought about it for a while, but it was going to be in a suburban district outside of Dallas. And I thought about it for a little bit, and I told the guy trying to hire me, I said, look, I could live in McKinney, Texas for 300 years, and no one would care about me and my family as much as they do with me living right here in Childress, Texas. And there's a lot of value to that mentality. And so I've always kind of felt, whether anyone asked me to or not, because I have at least some semblance of a platform, that I'm the guy that speaks up for rural people and rural Texas and rural Americans, because we're not, we're a lot of times we're painted as backwoods and simpletons and angry at the world, and but the truth is there's a lot of us, me included, I kind of feel like that, we live in rural America because we see beauty in the simplicity of the life that we try to lead. And so one of the things I really always try to do is be an ambassador for that line of thinking. And I think to this point, so far so good. So I guess my bigger point is I've been able to build, it's not a huge community, but it's a growing community of people who, I can tell you from a business standpoint, how many people went with me in 2025 on trips. I've got almost all my trips are completely sold out. All but two trips are sold out for 2026. 2025, I had 120 customers. 2026, I've got about 140 customers. I can tell you that. But I can tell you too, unequivocally, I've got about 5,000 people within the community who are listening to things I'm saying every single month, whether it's through my newsletter, whether it's through the YouTube videos I do or anything else, that's just extolling the virtues of rural living, simple living, the beauty of the outdoors. And it's a message that's no different than, kind of the traditional hook and bullet people do, but it's with a different sort of mechanism. It's to a whole new crowd that I think has not been privy to understand. And it's cool to go to Yellowstone. Like you're going, I'm going next week, Brandon. You're going soon. I don't know when that is. It's cool to go to Yellowstone, but there's something deeper about Yellowstone you ought to understand about how it became Yellowstone and the history behind the whole national park, and why those people sat at the base of National Park Monument and decided this is a place worth saving and this is a place worth keeping wild. And we've got to do everything we can to establish this ethic for generations to come, and understanding that the story behind that from the all the way back to the native the First Nations and indigenous people and the native people to where we're at today and everything in between. There's a story to be told, and I think it's an important story to be told. And I think as we get into this more and more complicated society in which we live, it's a story more and more urban people and suburban people need to hear.
Well, first, I want to say super proud of you, man. I'm on your website and you kind of nonchalantly mentioned it, but it's like Yellowstone Winter, Private Excursion, fully booked, Everglades, fully booked, Death Valley, fully booked. I mean, you go on and on. Moonlight on the Prairie, fully booked. Redland Ranch Wildlife Experience, fully booked. Costa Rica, fully booked. So, I mean, you are balling out and super busy, and it's very, very impressive, man. Super happy for you. But you made a point there about the importance of the land. And I'm curious because I don't want to get too political, but this administration is now passing a few things about trying to reverse some of the protections, even for the boundary waters, and that mining company out of Chile could be coming in and mining like nickel and a bunch of dangerous stuff right on the boundary waters. But you being the big Alaska guy too, there's some rumblings now about them going back and doing more mining in Alaska and doing some infrastructure to be able to get up into some of these areas. Have you been hearing anything about this? And kind of what are your thoughts on what's happening with our wild public lands as of late?
I'm just, and again, I'm an apolitical kind of guy, Shags. I just, there are complicated problems within our society. I'm not even going to begin to say I'm smart enough to really understand how to solve them, and I'm not even going to begin to say I'm even politically astute enough to change anybody else's mind. And so my thought is let me back up a second. One of my critiques of Texas is it's like we've gotten into this era over the past, I'm going to say 5 or 6 years. It's pretty new that we can't stand for one open patch of ground. We got to put concrete on top of it, and we got to subdivide it into something, or put a lake on it, or everything else. I know that's sort of an old school thought, but I kind of think that way from a broader standpoint. Just yesterday, I sent a letter to my U.S. representative about the National Park Service, and I said I think one thing that most of us can agree upon, and I think it's universal, no matter if you put an R or D or an I at the end of your name, I think the National Park Service people agree that it's something worth protecting. Well, I think if you take that same thought out and you apply it not to just the National Park Service, but you apply it to the National Forest Service, and then the BLM and every federal agency that owns land, I think people love our public lands. I know for a long, long time that I've been going to Alaska, and I can't tell you how many times I've been to Alaska. And I haven't been to the far north slope that much, but pretty much from the Alaska Peninsula to Southeast Alaska, Petersburg, that area, Sitka, all the way up to Fairbanks to the interior, the middle Alaska. I've just covered a lot of that state. And I know for a long time they've been concerned about pebble and gravel mining coming out of the Alaska Peninsula and how it's going to affect uh, uh, the salmon fisheries and the bear habitat and all that. And as someone who knows that, you know, it's really cool to go see the bears. I mean, I'll tell you, this just happened yesterday. I applied for a permit to go to get Brooks Lodge in Katmai National Park. I applied for a permit to get Brooks Lodging at the cabins in to take a group out there in this year. And I'm on the wait list. I'm 1,500 on the wait list, 1,500 and some change.
Wow.
That's out of 9,600 who applied to go to that. So, and that 9,600 is up from about 2,000 that applied in 2020. And so there's been a fivefold increase nearly in how many people want to go out there to Katmai National Park, stay in their cabins and see the bears. There's no chance. There's not going to be a 1,499 people that are going to cancel in front of me. So there's zero chance I'll get to go this year and stay in their cabins. But my point is there's value in wild places, and there's value in experiences like that people want to go see. People want to go see wild bears catching wild salmon. It's a pretty simple activity. I mean, you're standing there watching fish swim up the river just to the bear's mouth. Something that's been going on for tens of thousands, for something since time immemorial. It's been going on, but there's a value to that people love and enjoy. And I think at some point, and I don't know where that point is, because I'll concede, as a human species, we need to keep growing and we need to keep thriving. But at some point, we've got to decide there's some of these places we just got to keep off, our hands off. It's too special to go in and mess up. And I think our forefathers figured it out with the national park system. But I think at some point we've as a society, and I'm not just saying just Americans, but the whole world needs to grow up and say, there's just places in the world that we just need to protect. I do it from a smaller level. Hackberry Farm. I do all I can to make the habitat better, influence wildlife that wants to be here, and protect it at all costs. And I think from a societal standpoint, we've just got to get to that and understand that, yeah, development's good, but unchecked development for the sake of just development, I think really impedes our progress as a species. I mean, I just think that one of the things that makes us whole as people is the wild places that we have around us. And that sounds trite and it sounds a little bit corny, I know, but just think about it. Any commercial you see, you watch television for a while and watch any commercial about automobiles or pharmaceutical companies or anything else, they always want to show our wide open spaces. So I think innately we're drawn to those places that are outside the city limits, outside development, outside of where we, I say we collectively, we kind of see as modern, proper society. Those commercials that when, and I think that's done subliminally. We just look to nature to be a healer in all of us. And I just think that needs to be remembered in all of our policy making, and all of our politicians need to remember that. Now, I don't know a way to solve that problem. I really don't. I wish I was smart enough to be able to have the influence to be able to solve that. But what I do believe is there's a continuum. I wrote this in a magazine article just this month. It's in a magazine article. It's out right now. And I wrote it about something as innocuous as a prairie chicken in Texas. Prairie chickens are in trouble. Grassland birds are in trouble. If you take people out if you show people a picture of prairie chickens, it's hard to make a connection. But if you take people out there and you show them, prairie chickens are pretty cool. And they're pretty animated, and they're a lot of fun to watch. All of a sudden, when you see them with your own eyes, and I'm doing this in a small way, 6 people at a time that I take on my trips. When you do it in a small way, all of a sudden people start giving a damn. And when they give a damn, they kind of move to the next action of what can we do to ensure that I can see this not only this year, but next year. And then I can see it the year after that. Then all of a sudden my kids can see it, or my grandkids can see it. You expose it to them, they give a damn, and then after a while, and it's not everybody, but after a while, they start trying to figure out what can we do to kind of keep this going. And we just need more people like that to care.
Well, I think one thing you can do is not be apolitical. I mean, if you're saying you're apolitical in the sense that you don't take a side, that's great, because we need more independence, and the independent party needs to grow significantly. But if you mean apolitical in the sense that you don't engage with politics, then, my friend, you're part of the problem. Because somebody as articulate as you, somebody with as much opportunity to influence as you have, you need to engage. And I can say this to you, my friend, as if we were sitting across the dinner table, because I can back it up that Shags and I have. Like we created Conservation Day at the Capitol. It's still going on. It's not a Republican event. It's not a Democrat event. We want every legislator to come. We want people from every party to come. We want to bring people together and support conservation the best way I know how, which is to engage, unfortunately, with politics. So I hear you on taking care of Hackberry Farm. Everybody knows I've had properties that I try to take care of as well. But ultimately, it's those people in the State House, and it's those people in the U.S. Capitol that are going to determine what the future of our public lands look like. And right now, maybe more than ever, they need to hear voices like yours. And those of you listening, you need to speak up. And I'm not telling you how to speak up. I'm just telling you, for whatever it is that you care about. And I think I can speak for the 3 of us. We care about healthy landscapes, clean water, healthy soil, robust wildlife populations, access to all of that for others, regardless of how much money you have. Then I'm going to continue to have my voice heard on those topics. I know Shags is doing the same. And Russell, you're doing it whether you admit it or not, because you're such an influential citizen that they know who you are. But man, to have you show up and articulate what you just did in front of the people that can file the legislation to make or break us, my brother, you need to get your ass to Austin.
Well, I honestly, I think that's part of the journey for me, is just trying to figure out, what do I have to say? I think that's for all of us to figure out, what do you have to say? I think a lot of us, if you're humble in spirit, like I've always really tried to be, if you're humble in spirit, then you suffer from imposter syndrome a little bit, because and my default position is, well, what in the world do I have to say, that's gonna influence anybody, or what? I mean, well, how I'm, because the day I showed up for college, let me say this. The day I showed up for college at East Texas State University in 1989 or 88, in the fall of 88 as a freshman, I would have bet money I was the dumbest kid on the campus because I come from Dodge City, Texas, population 250 people at the time. It's about 300 now. It hasn't grown. I came from Dodge City, Texas. I'm a simple country boy who grew up north and grew up north of Dodge City out in the country. I come from a blue collar household who grew up in a house of modest means. I mean, we if if we were poor, we didn't know it at the time, but looking back, we had everything we needed, but not a penny more than that growing up. And so I show up to college thinking I'm the dumbest kid there. But over time, I realized that, I'm selling myself a little bit short. And I've always done that. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I've just always, went through life and saying, I'm good at what I do right now, but who am I to really say anything? But I think you're right. I think we've all got to use our collective voices and speak up against things and that's why I wrote my representative yesterday about the National Park Service. I mean, there was a lot of praise in there about the National Park Service, but there was a sharp critique in there about how they treat small business owners like me. And so that's my foray into politics this week, because I just think that the way that the National Park Service treats commercial operators like me is unfair. And so I'm trying to use the system to rectify it.
Well,
And
let me say, one thing I absolutely love about this podcast is the questions that come up that I didn't see coming. Like I didn't think I was going to start, or I didn't think when we started this podcast I'd be asking you this question, but would you consider running for politics? Because I think you would make an incredible state rep or an incredible state senator.
there was a time. I'm going to answer this in a long, nuanced way, like I do every question, Brandon. So bear with me. when, when I was
like
in
a true politician.
when
Yes.
I
I'm
when
going to
I was
answer
in-
it both ways, and you won't be able to know what the answer really is.
when I was in college, I hope you don't mind me saying his name. He's a mentor of mine, Larry Klingbeil. Love the man. I think he's out of the college education business, but he was one of my college professors. He took us through this goal setting process where you'd create long-term goals, and then you'd create intermediate goals that would help feed into the long-term goals, and short-term goals that would help lead into that. It's something valuable I learned in my whole life. I've been doing the same sort of thing as setting goals and trying to work towards those goals. And one of the things that I wrote down as a 19 or 20-year-old back in the day was politics. I wanted to be the agricultural commissioner of Texas Agriculture Commissioner. Thought that'd be a cool job to have. And so I started positioning myself as a young 20-year-old to become in politics. But I learned pretty quick my brand of politics isn't like everybody else's brand of politics, because I had a hard time, and to some degree I've grown up a lot since then, but I have a hard time of if I feel like it's the right way of doing things, of capitulating to someone else just for the sake of compromise, to doing things that I consider wrong, and it's just a principle stance. And so I'm kind of that way today on a lot of things that I'll concede there's a lot of as we say in the country, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. You know, I'll express an opinion about something, and I'll be the first one to say, I'm going to say this to you, but I could be wrong about it. So feel free to pick my thoughts apart, because I'd love to hear what you have to say. But there's a few things in life I think are kind of finite, and this is how you need to do them. And I learned early on, to play politics, you've got to be a little more flexible than I was willing to be back in my 20s. And as I grew into my 30s, and I went from kind of politically minded and public service minded, I started becoming a lot more entrepreneurial minded, and really wanted to try to explore growing businesses. And, really, this sounds terrible to say, but at a point, I spent 16 years in the public education system. I spent 16 years being named Texas Teacher of the Year 3 times and National Runner-Up for Teacher of the twice, and winning every award you can win as a teacher, and it might not making one penny's difference in how much I was paid. So I got to a point in my life, good or bad, right or wrong, don't know. Got to a point in my life when I thought, I've given it the office. I've got to spend the next 10 or 15 years for Russell. I got to do this for me. And so to be that entrepreneurial and that self-centered on your focus, it required me to not be public service minded. So I kind of took that out of my mind at some point of ever running for anything else. And so at one point I got recruited to run for local offices like county commissioner and city council and school board. And I had a friend who was on the school board at the time uh, come to me and say, hey, I need to give you some advice. He said, so if you get on the school board, you're going to be messing with people's kids and their money. And you think that's a good idea for what reason? And when he said that to me, I thought, he's right. I just need to kind of stay in my own lane. And so that's just what I've done.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you the same question 10 years from now, too. So you'll be, up there in your upper 60s in 10 years. That'd be a great time to take that wisdom and put it to use. So I'm not going to let you off the hook on that. We'll revisit in a decade, see where you're at.
All right. Yeah, I just think
I wish a political party would embrace conservation. That's what kills me. And I don't believe either party does. I believe the Democratic Party embraces environmentalism and preservation, and the Republican Party embraces the shooting sports and hunting and fishing. But it's like both of them want to keep us off of public lands. Only one party has been in favor of selling them. The other party just doesn't think we should walk on them. And it's just conservation is the wise use of our natural resources. Why can't that platform be universally accepted?
I feel like it's bipartisan. We all love the outdoors.
Easiest thing. It should be the easiest thing to embrace. But it's
I also feel like people get so caught up in the ideology of their political party that it's, well, my party doesn't do anything wrong, your party does everything wrong, and there's no more nuance, there's no more taking a step back and just acknowledging like, hey, maybe this isn't the perfect thing for the planet or the United States to let a company out of Chile come into our boundary waters and mine it underground and then just pour toxic junk from nickel and iron and copper and everything into the boundary waters and kill. Could you imagine out there on the boundary waters, you and the whole crew, and you're just sloshing through mining waste? Like, how is this the amount of greed? I mean, how much is too much? Like, it really frustrates me. And same with Alaska. Like, why are we messing up one of the crown jewels of the United States for the idea for a company to get a little bit more money? That we're not going to see any of that. It's not coming to the people. The rich are just going to keep getting richer, and they're terrorizing our land.
Some short-term construction jobs,
I think you'll open up a lot of different avenues. I mean, one, I think you said it perfectly, Shags. How much is enough? I mean, I think that's one question we've got to ask ourselves as a society. I don't know the answer. I really don't. But at some point, we got to figure that out. How much is enough? I think, Brandon, to your point, I can tell you this. I had this conversation just last week with someone. I spent a little bit of time in my life doing economic development consulting for a small town in Texas. And I discovered early on that these small towns and small communities where there's not a lot going on, they become like the ugliest kid at a junior high dance. They'll take any deal just to take a deal. They just want someone to ask them to dance with them. And so to that point, they end up taking these horrible deals. Children's Texas right now, it's like a lot of communities. And again, I'm not arguing if this is good or bad. I'm just telling the truth. They have a couple of AI data centers that are going out east of town from Childress. These huge facilities that are a drain on the resources from the power grid to at least some degree in water. I'm not smart enough to speak to what degree, but I know at least some point they're upsetting the balance of that rural community because all of a sudden people don't feel like they've got control of anything because elected politicians said that we're not getting no one's asking us to dance, so we're going to take the first people that come along to say, yeah, we want to do something with you. So they end up making a bad deal just to get a deal in place. And so that point's got to be rectified as well. At some point, people have to draw a line in the sand and say, we like our way of living. We want to grow, but at some point we've got to say enough is enough. If you're going to come to our community and if you think it's a good enough place you can make money, then you're welcome here. But you got to kind of do it on our terms and
Got to
make it
jump in real quick
work for all of us.
before you get too far from the point. They're draining the resources that are needed by the people that live there to build a business that's not going to employ hardly anybody that lives there. These
No,
data centers, I was just watching a show about it the other day. Once they're constructed, you need a couple security guards and a janitor, and that's it. They're just machines inside of a building that covers, an ungodly amount of earth, just draining electricity, making rates go up like crazy for local residents. They just passed a bill in Indiana. We're at that IU Purdue game, and I guess we're old because that's what my buddies were talking about, where their electric bills and legislation that just got passed to limit how high these electric bills can go. Because same thing, they're putting all these data centers in North County, and it's just screwing everybody around there.
well, you go to a place like Jackson, Wyoming, right? Jackson or Estes Park, Colorado, or a lot of these kind of resort towns have figured out a long time ago, there's value in the wild places that we hold so dear. So we're going to pass regulations that if you build something new in our town, we're going to let you, but you gotta follow all these rules. And I, again, the Texan in me says, well, if you own the land, you ought to be able to do what you want to do. But there's also a collective good in mind as well, I think. And so to that end, think about, if you're 5 miles out of Jackson, Wyoming, and you're town at night, you don't even know the town's there because they've enacted a lighting ordinance that says if you put a light up outside your business, it's got to point down. It can't point up into the sky. We want to protect our night skies. Just the value of people to be able to go out and see the stars at night. We want to protect that, right? And so they have realized that there's value in wild places. And look, if you've ever been to Jackson before, it's about the fanciest places exist in America. I mean, the joke is the billionaires push out the millionaires there because
Jackson has a higher per capita wealth than Manhattan now. It's the number one wealth center in the country.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. I love going there. I absolutely do. I love the Tetons. I love everything about the area. But then you take the opposite of that when you talk about the extraction business, whether we're extracting minerals from the ground, whether it's gravel, pebbles, and pebble mining in Alaska, or whether we're talking sand and gravel here in Fannin County. That's a big issue right now in the county where I live. There's we're right on the Red River, and there's the best dirt in the world is right here in this county. And they're taking out, they're moving the county one truckload at a time somewhere else. You talk about oil, wind, solar, all these extraction businesses. And then when you place those businesses that are, I'm not going to say the businesses aren't legitimate, but when all of a sudden you place those upon counties that there's not a whole lot going on economically, the relationship to me becomes a little predatory. And the fact that, name one windmill town you'd love to go visit, or name one oil field town you want to go visit, or name one solar farm town you want to go visit. They just don't exist. And so it's like almost like the third worldification of the rural parts of our nation where they're extracting the value out of those places, but those places see some benefit, but they don't see the ultimate benefit because when you extract one resource and you send it somewhere else, it's that somewhere else that benefits more. There's a lake, the Texas newest reservoir is a mile north of my house. That water, it's benefited the county to some degree, but that water is going to a metroplex far away from here that's going to benefit those people far more than it benefits the locals in town. The saddest thing I've ever heard from the locals here in regards to that lake is because of taxes and infrastructure and everything else that's getting out of control, that I grew up in Fannin County. I was born in Fannin County, but I can't afford to die in Fannin County. So I've got to sell my place and move to somewhere else because of everything else, because of the extraction business is sending resources somewhere else. And at some point, again, I'll concede that we need growth, we need prosperity. We live in an entrepreneurial society. We can't have all regulations to regulate everything. I think there's a place for that. But at some point, we've got to figure out collectively as a society, it can't be a free for all, and where that sweet spot is, where we can have sustained growth and we can have sustained prosperity and we can have sustained happiness, but we can't just do it at the expense of all of our wild places just because they're there for the taking.
And if you would like to learn more about Russell's campaign, just go to russellgraves.com. russellgraves.com. U.S. Congress 2030, russellgraves.com.
No. I'd mention one thing to some politicians in Texas. I'll say this one last point because I really am. I'm not that. I think when it comes to our political class, I think we've got a lot of fault in our political class. But when the only film I've ever did in my life was a documentary film called Boat Art Goodbye. And it was about a creek that I grew up on with my brother. And before the creek was gone, we floated all 66 miles of it just to document what it was like before they flooded it with a reservoir. And talking to the people who were affected by that land grab, and it was a eminent domain who were affected by that land grab. Talking to those people in the end, it kind of came clear to me that one thing that would soften the blow is if we could develop some sort of water royalty, where if they're going to take your land, if you have no say and they're taking your land for a water project that's going to send water somewhere else, you ought to at least be able to have a royalty that you can enjoy for the rest of your life based on a prorated portion of how much they took from your property, and something that you could sell to a third party like a mineral right if you wanted to. Or something you could sell, you could pass on to a family member like me. I'd love nothing more to have a water right that I could pass on to my children, and their futures would be set. And I started kind of mentioning that to politicians in regards to this lake. And you'd have thought that I'd said we need to sacrifice our firstborn. There was just no hearing that conversation about any kind of water right. And I just realized that it's just, how much can one person do? I thought it was a sane, sensible thought that you could, if you're being affected by some sort of eminent domain, you could be made whole for a generation to come. But it's like I'm the only one that saw it was that way.
Well, long time ago,
I know I'm not the only one that talks about that stuff. I don't mean to say that's the original idea for me. I don't mean to say that's I am so astute that that's the way it works, but you'd be surprised that when I started kind of floating those ideas around to state legislatures at the time, probably 15 years ago in Texas, that how much, not pushback, but how much apathy those ideas had.
I learned a long time ago in Jefferson City that the answer to your question is money. And no matter how many layers of the onion you got to peel back, at some point you run into the core. And at the core of those problems is money. And that's the biggest problem with our politics, regardless of who you support. That's the biggest problem with our politics is money.
Well, that's the root of all evil. Even talking about destroying our public lands, it's all about money, just so the rich can keep getting richer. It's just,
when we ask how could they ever do that? It's money, right?
So they can have another yacht.
Yeah, why would you vote against the boundary waters? Oh yeah, there's money. So
there's a company that's not even from the U.S. and they need to make the billions of dollars. What are you thinking? Why do we need that many lakes?
So do you think the voters are going to go like 4 layers deep and find out, who did the Chilean company give money to through the lobby firm that they hired to get the politicians greased to pass that bill? Like, no, they're just somebody's going to go on stage with a machine gun and fire it off and be like, vote for us. Or the other side's going to drive their Subaru along a brook somewhere and say, vote for us. And that's what people vote on emotion. And they feel like they're on a team. They're on one team or the other team.
And they're just trying to own each other. That's all they care about is
so while that's
the libs or calling the Republicans fascists or something. And
while both sides have got their people all worked up in that, they're all in the middle together, just taking it all. They're all like, okay, you get that side worked up over this stuff, and we'll get this side worked over this stuff. And then while they're not paying attention to the real shit, we'll start mining the boundary waters.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a couple of problems are I think we elect our politicians like we're picking gladiators to go into the Coliseum. You know, we 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 we're forced to pick them like who can we pick that is promised to destroy the other side. And I think we lose focus in we're all Americans. We all should be on the same team. And I know there's some legitimate and illegitimate arguments in between that can be had about how sincere and how well-meaning people are about trying to work together on stuff. But I think there's I think at some point along the way we've lost our focus and we've lost our way on just trying to figure this stuff out together and work together on it. Uh,
No
I
doubt about that, Russell. Let's end with
go ahead.
that thought on politics, because that's a really good one. I've got a board meeting tonight, so I do have a hard out coming up, and we haven't
Okay.
even gotten to a topic that really kind of spurred me to ask you to come back on the podcast. Was you again, one of those divine things right in the middle of the firestorm that we've had on social media, just frustrated to no end, and you probably hadn't called me in over 6 months, and you called out of nowhere, and it was just like nobody better could have called me in that moment just to talk some sense into me. And you kind of broke my heart in a little way, though, because you told me, I don't even really hunt anymore. And when I think of you, I think of you as a hunter. I think of
Yeah.
your brother Bubba is a not only is he an amazing member of our armed services, a very proud veteran and someone we're thankful for. He's that dude could live off the land. Like, he could
Yeah.
win alone. He's that guy. Alaska for 20 years. So to hear you say that, it just kind of took the breath out of me, because if we're losing people like you, we're losing the people that I grew up admiring, what I consider to be the core of the tradition. And I just wanted you to maybe share a little bit about that journey from being a hardcore rural Texan hunter to being in your mid 50s and not really hunting anymore.
Yeah, I think I want to really clarify that point to say I'm not anti-hunting at all. I'll never be anti-hunting. I think hunting is such an important part of our society, not only from a cultural standpoint, and I think probably as much as anything, it's culturally important, but also from a conservation and just common sense standpoint. But uh, I spent well, I think I need to back up to when I was a kid. I was raised in a family. Again, I mentioned this before that uh, I was raised in a family of modest means. And, grandpa that didn't have much and a dad that, blue collar guy worked hard his whole life and did the best he could to provide for, I'm the youngest of five kids. And I have no complaints of how my parents raised me and what they did for us is it's not me looking back and being critical of them at all. I have no complaints about that. But one of the things I was taught early on, because I did grow up in the country and I did grow up, kind of we were farm to table way before it was cool. Uh, One of the things I did learn growing up is that my grandpa and my dad taught me was don't kill it unless you plan on eating it. And that simple ethos has guided me my whole adult life on when it comes to hunting or fishing. I love the thought of fishing when you can catch something and turn it back and you can go, theoretically catch it later. But it guided me to a point when hunting that, I hunting and killing something and taking something else's life. And this is going to sound sappy for me to say, but I won't back down from this thought. It's a sacred act. It is. It's to kill something, to take something else's life, which I'm not opposed to, but to take a wild animal's life or a domestic animal's life for that point, because we all go out and have our steaks and our hamburgers and our barbecue. We all love that, but to take anything's life, another sentient being's life, ought to be sacred. And I've always held that really close to my heart. And so for years, as I kind of built my business and built my identity and trying to figure out who I was, just hunting and rural, the things you do as a rural Texan and American really uh, was close to home. And so I consider that part of my identity. I still do consider myself an outdoorsman and a hunter. But somewhere along the way, and I think this is pretty typical of hunters, that if you remember back to your hunter safety course, you'll remember the 4 stages of a sport hunter. And we start out at we just want to shoot a gun, and then we go to a limit out stage where we just want to limit out and catch as much or kill as much as we can. And then we kind of go to more of a give back stage in the end. And then I think I went beyond the give back stage, where I've been to those points where I wanted to, and it went pretty quick, where I just wanted to shoot something. I've grown up shooting firearms and shooting bows and shooting stuff. That doesn't appeal to me that much anymore. Uh, I went through the limit out phase pretty quick, because limited out didn't mean anything to me, because again, the ethic I was raised with, don't kill something that you don't plan to eat. And so even when I was in the process of hunting, I'd go out squirrel hunting or rabbit hunting. I may kill one or two. I wasn't going to kill too many, because I didn't want to have to eat something I didn't plan on eating. Wasn't going to kill something I wasn't supposed to kill, because I didn't plan on eating any of it. And so you kind of, for me, I take that ethic through my life. And then somewhere along the way, if I'm being honest about it, is working in the hunting industry to some degree, writing and photographing for magazines and photographing for corporate clients within the hunting industry. I don't know who's to blame. I'm going to say it's me to blame, because it left me. I mean, I left it. It didn't leave me. But somewhere along the way, this emphasis on just whack 'em and stack 'em, just killing, just the whole thing about just, we got to limit out on everything. I think outdoor television fed into that a little bit. I think the corporate, because when you're selling a product, you've got to sell success. And I think success in hunting means you got to go kill something. And so I think that whole corporate ethos sort of, yeah, I'm not going to say it's for everybody, but some of that corporate ethos, as I saw it, kind of fed into that whole thing, that hunting is just about killing. It's not about the experience. It's not about the outdoors. It's not about just watching and enjoying. Somewhere along the way, I sort of grew apart from that whole ethic, and just didn't, not that well, I'll just say I just don't agree with it. I think, again, I think hunting and killing another animal is a sacred act, and it ought to be treated as such. And to that point, I've just never felt comfortable sharing any of my successes to a broader audience, because I mean, I've always thought, again, you can call me weak, you can call me a weenie, you can call me whatever, that's fine.
Oh, people will, dude. Don't you worry.
But I've just never felt comfortable.
I totally understand.
Celebrating killing another animal in front of a broader audience. I mean, it's that's between me and the animal.
100%, man.
It's just something I've always kind of held to heart. But really, I'll say this, aside from all that, I mean, I never have considered myself a controversial person, but one, maybe the most controversial things I'll ever say in regards to hunters. And believe me when I say this, it is harder to go out and take a picture of a 150-inch or truly wild 150-inch white-tailed deer. It's harder to go out and take a good picture of that animal than it is to go kill one with a bow or kill one with a gun. And hear me out when I say that. And the reason is, when you're photographing animals in the wild, if you're doing it right and you're trying to get those really knocked down pictures that are just everyone that's going to make the cover of a magazine, you can't be in a tree stand, because you got to be at eye level with it. So that's going to handicap you to some degree. Number two, you can't worry about the wind direction, because wind direction at that point doesn't matter. What matters is the direction of the light and the quality of the light on the animal. So you've got to position yourself where, the wind may be blowing at your back straight towards that animal, but if that's the best light, that's the best picture. And so it's always been harder to shoot a picture. And so in a lot of ways, not only from sort of an ethical standpoint with hunting, but from a practical standpoint and a challenge standpoint, I replaced a gun and a bow with a camera. It's just more of a challenge for me to go out and try to get those good pictures than it is to try to shoot one with a bow. And from a really, really practical standpoint, it is 5 20 in Texas right now. The sun's about to go down. If I was to take a good picture of a whitetail right now, I'm done. If I was to go kill one right now, if it was still season, I was to kill an animal, I'm not in bed till 10 o'clock tonight because I gotta go far with it. So from a lazy man standpoint, when you're done for the end of the day.
Yeah, you use
So
a
there's
lot of
a
the same skills. You use a lot
yeah,
of the
there's
same skills that you use in hunting.
it is. It's fieldcraft. It's I did a YouTube video last week that I'd said that one of the things that served me well in my early days of photography is understanding wildlife, understanding how to get close to wildlife, and all those things you got to do. All the things you learn as a hunter, and just being able to get close to wildlife. And so I used to shoot wildlife all the time with the 200 millimeter lens. You know, I've since advanced in my technique and advanced in my equipment, but it's still those same fieldcraft techniques that I learned as a hunter and learned as a burgeoning outdoorsman that still serves me today. So again, I'm not going to say, I'll never say I'm anti-hunting. I am not anti-hunting. In fact, I'm lucky to be in a position with my platform from time to time. I get to talk to anti-hunters about why hunting is so important in our society. And I think I'm changing some minds one person at a time, because I think once they hear the unemotional reason why hunting is valuable, I think people kind of get it. I really think they do. And I think once they hear the conservation aspect, and once they hear that it's you know, the simple fact is there's not been one species of game animals that have been threatened by extinction because of regulated hunting. People are surprised to hear that. I'm not surprised y'all to hear that people don't know that fact, but it's just the truth. And when you share that with people and you share the good gospel that good conservation and good hunting does for our nature's wildlife resources, then people start buying into it. I'll make this one last point. I'll tell people this all the time. If you go to a national wildlife refuge in our country, thank a hunter for it, because it's hunting. When you go out and take pictures, there's no Pittman Robertson Act that applies to when I start buying camera equipment that goes back directly into wildlife conservation. But when you're a hunter and you buy a license, you know, a prorated portion of that money based on state goes back to the state coffers to help fund wildlife conservation in their states, which includes state parks, state wildlife management areas, and national wildlife management areas.
Well,
Or
that's
national wildlife
one reason
refuges.
why Missouri is so special, is because in Missouri, when you buy a camera, 1/8 of a cent of your sales tax actually goes to conservation. So everybody gets to pay into conservation, whether you're a resident or someone just passing through. Why that doesn't become the national model of wildlife conservation funding, I don't know, but we got it right here in Missouri. Hey,
Amen.
Shags, I think I want to do something different.
Instead of
I'd
the
like to
mystery bait bucket?
I'd like to have a first. I'd like there to be a Brandon Butler mystery bait bucket
Oh,
question.
you
I've
have a
never had
question?
one. I do. So go ahead and introduce the bait bucket, and you can
Okay.
just say this one's for
Well,
me.
Russell's been on here twice. This is his third time. Michael
That's
Jordan's
right.
repeating. So what you see here in front of you is a bait bucket that Brandon and I picked up before we even started this podcast. And if you have a question that you want to submit, you can email us, info@drifthoodoutdoors.com. You can send us a message on Facebook or Instagram, Driftwood Outdoors, or leave a comment on this video, or just message us on YouTube, Driftwood Outdoors TV. And this question is actually coming from Brandon Butler.
There you go. So when Russell was talking, it made me think to go back to some of the politics stuff that we were talking about. You know, there used to be a time where each party would run a candidate where you didn't feel like the world was going to end if the other person won. You still had the person you voted for. And I can remember this in my lifetime. And I just kind of was thinking to myself, who were two candidates that could run? Like, if you were able to pick the Republican candidate and the Democratic candidate, and you felt like, I could live with either one of those. And since I asked the question, I'll give you guys some time to think. I'll go ahead and go first. And I'm talking about for president. So I've been watching a lot of Rand Paul lately. And even though we're pretty far apart on some of the conservation stuff and public lands, that guy is honest. And I mean, he just stands behind what he believes and sticks to the Constitution. So I like him. And then on the Democratic side, U.S. Senator Martin Heinrich is actually from Missouri, lives in New Mexico. He's a rural Missouri guy, University of Missouri engineer graduate, He's the most conservative Democrat I know. He cares about conservation more than anyone I know, and he does not want the job, which is a great reason for why someone like that should have it. So I think if Rand Paul ran against Martin Heinrich,
Or
I
with?
could
You
be
mean with?
no, I mean Rand Paul would be the Republican, Martin Heinrich would be the Democrat. So that's my
Oh,
question.
I thought you meant we're looking for a combination from
Nope,
both
you're
parties.
looking for two people to oppose each other that if either one of them were to win, you'd be like,
okay with
"All
it.
right," you'd be okay with it.
Okay.
So
Well,
those
that's
are
a
my
tough
two.
one then.
Republican Rand Paul, Democrat Martin Heinrich.
Because I've always liked the idea that you should have a Republican, and then Republican, if they wanted to run for president, then your vice president had to be a Democrat. Or if the Democrat was running, your vice president had to be a Republican. So you automatically had to find someone that you were willing to work with.
That's a good idea. I've never thought of that. That way, like, you have to have enough faith in this person that if you die,
yeah,
they get the controls to the country.
And you get forced to work with each other. And I mean, like you said, in our lifetime, I mean, I remember growing up, we weren't Republicans, we weren't Democrats, we were Oregonians and Americans, and you voted on the person you thought was going to best represent your state and your country. It wasn't like it's this or die. And I feel like that's where we've gotten to the point of now everyone's like, if you vote for them, the world's going to end. If you vote for them, America's over. Like, what are we doing? No, drives me nuts.
That's why on this podcast, we're picking the candidates that we can all live with.
Well, there's one coming out of Texas that I'm very excited about. I wish he would run for president. He's really young though. He was just a state rep, but he's running for U.S. Senate now. That James Tellerico. Have you seen him? Did you watch that Joe Rogan podcast when he was on there?
No, don't know who you're talking about.
He's a Democrat, and he's making a lot of waves, and just makes a lot of sense. He also a school teacher, like Russell said. He went to seminary school. He's a very well-spoken Democrat. That, I mean, I know it's a long shot, but if I had to pick one, I'm really impressed with everything that guy's saying coming out of Texas. So that would be my Democrat. And then Brandon, you kind of stole my Republican. I'd have to do some more research to find another. I like Rand Paul.
You can pick them.
So those would be my two.
I don't know their political stripes at all when I say this, but I think some combination of either George Strait, Willie Nelson, or Matthew McConaughey. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure George Strait's a diehard conservative.
I've got
Matthew
no
McConaughey.
Clue. I got no clue, and I don't care.
He leans the other. So you got to pick them for the parties, though. So you could run George Strait as your Republican. Willie Nelson's not a Republican, but he's also older than the president we've got. So you'd have to go George Strait as a Republican, and who was the other one?
Matthew McConaughey. All right.
Man, that is perfect. I could live with that. I could live with either George Strait or Matthew McConaughey being president. Russell nailed and avoided the question.
Well played, like a true politician.
RussellGraves.com 2030 U.S. Congress.
I'm just
about his campaign today.
I'm too ignorant,
money, Russell.
I'm too ignorant to give you a better answer on all that stuff.
You gotta donate to Russell's campaign, because even though we're not about the money, it's about the money.
All right.
Better yet, just pick a cool trip to go on with me, and let's all do it together for the love of the outdoors.
Heck
I like that.
That's a great way to end it. So final thoughts, the final cast of the pod. Russell, please take the opportunity to hit all your websites, your socials. I'll put them in the show notes as well. And I know Brandon's going to have some really nice things to say about you, so I'll lead it off going, great seeing you again, my man. We need to get together sooner than like every 6 years. I feel like it seems like it's been too long, but we should all meet up and go on a trip. And whether it's fishing or photography or anything like that, I'd love to hang out again. I had a really good time hanging out with you down at the old Driftwood Acres property way back in the day. That was a blast.
I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, hackberryfarm.com is a good place to kind of see what we're doing from a travel and educational standpoint. Social media, gosh, I'm all over the board. RussellGraves.com, Facebook, and I think it's Russell Graves on on Instagram and X as well. So I'm not real big into social media. I don't do a lot, but Wildlife Photo Show on YouTube. That'll give you all the education you need. Hours
Sorry,
and
what was
hours
it?
and hours of videos.
Yep.
Wildlife what on YouTube?
Photo Show.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of my generation in my family, and you heard Russell say he's the youngest of 5 siblings. So God didn't give me an older brother, which I think has a lot to do with why I seek out some of the friendships that I have. And Russell, we've, like we said, it's somewhere between 15 and 20 years, and you've let me bounce a lot of ideas off of you. You've bounced some off me too, but I've been able to watch you 10 years ahead of me navigate some things that I admire, and I look to you as a mentor in a way, and as a friend, and kind of like an older brother, man. Like, I appreciate your friendship, your kindness, your intelligence. You definitely kind of set the path for me in ways. So I just really appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, I think it's if you're a believer like I am and you're God fearing like I am, I think you try to do your best to sort of feel your way through this life. I think God made all of our lives sort of a puzzle for us to figure out, and we've got two missions in mind when we're figuring that out. One is how to grow closer to Him, and then number two is how to create the best life you can around you, given all your God-given talents. And so uh, I've always taken that thought seriously and tried to help everybody else around me that I can. And then really just spend as much time talking as I do listening and learning from everybody else. So I've learned a lot from you guys, and proud of how y'all have come along and built your platform like you built it. And I'm in awe of what you guys are doing.
Man, you're the best, dude. Gear review coming up next. End of the podcast, the beginning of the gear review. Brandon, what are you reviewing for us today?
Well, anybody that's watched the podcast now on YouTube, you see behind me a beautiful photograph. So I am actually going to review Russell Graves' photography, because this photograph that I've had up behind me since we started the podcast on video is one that Russell took at Driftwood Acres. So if you've ever heard me talk about the cabin and kind of wondered what it looked like down there, this is it. And I'm going to move my big melon and microphone out of the way. And Russell, why don't you tell people a little bit about this photo you took, and then you blew it up and sent it to me on a canvas.
I did. So I'm gonna tell a couple things about that picture. Number one, Brandon uh, was gracious enough to invite me and my son to come up to Driftwood Acres, where we came up there to go fishing. But what we didn't know is we were going to have a rainfall of the decade when it hit there. One of the things that we always grew up saying around here in the country was, "I'll see you tomorrow if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise." And I've never experienced that before until I went to Driftwood Acres. And so we got in one evening, and then it started raining, and it kept raining, and it kept raining. And I don't know the name. What's Deep Creek? Is that the name of that creek, Brandon?
Sinking Creek.
Sinking Creek. That creek got up where we couldn't go back across it. And so we were stuck there for a couple of days, and to the point we were about to run out of food, if y'all remember correctly. But anyway, while we were there, we took advantage of it. We fished when we could, and it was a marginal fishing trip, but we went out at night and took pictures of frogs, because all of a sudden, you bloom where you're planted, and one evening, uh, all of a sudden we start hearing thousands and thousands of frogs, because all that rain, they decided it was party time and it was time to breed. So we went out one night, shot pictures of frogs with me and Brandon and Shags and my son. And then the next morning when the sun came up, to see the creek, I flew the drone up and shot that picture right there, just right out of the front yard of Driftwood Acres. And so on the end, the thing I remember most, and I still tell this story all the time, is we couldn't get out back across that creek because that creek was too deep, and there was no, I mean, it was going to be days before we could get back out. So Brandon gave me the map of a logging road to get me over the mountains. And so we took off in my 2014 Chevy pickup, Silverado 4-wheel drive that I still have today. And I wound my way through the mountains, and there's a couple of places I didn't know if I was to turn left or right, but I let good old country savvy guide my way, and we crossed some creeks we probably weren't supposed to. But by the time we got to that logging road, and or by the time we got up that logging road and got to the right of way, and we were able to find ourselves out to the pavement, it was kind of a hairy thing, but we found our way out. So as my way to thank Brandon, in the end, when I got back home, I sent him a picture of the southern Missouri Ozarks, or southeast Missouri Ozarks, where we were, and it's one of those memories I'll always have in that adventure that we did.
Yeah, and that's no joke. If you had to drive back up the backside of that hill, up that holler, that was a road. You can't even call it a road. That was a trail. Because we
Yeah,
did
when
before.
I remember when Ranella and Giannis came in, it was flooded too, and I had to take them in that way. And I think for a minute they really thought I was just kidnapping them when we went in that back way. That was hairy. That was hairy. So,
oh, that's too funny.
But you're giving directions like, well, you got to go this way, and then you're gonna hit this one spot where you got to drive up the creek for a little ways, and you'll kind of see the path go off to the side. I mean, it was as remote of a road as I've ever driven. I've been to Africa. I go to Africa every year. I mean, it is
the Ozarks are special, man. They're special.
More civilized than those roads that we saw there in the Ozarks, but we made it out, and it makes for a good story, and so that's all part of the adventure.
Oh, that's funny. Well, for my gear review, it finally took me about a year, a little over a year, to finally not just be sitting on a garage sale chair complaining about my back and my butt hurting and sitting on multiple pillows. I went and got myself, I'll do the spin, a fancy. Got the microphone. A fancy office podcasting chair, and this thing is legit. Breathable mesh in the back keeps me cool while we're recording. It's got adjustable lumbar support, a headrest, armrests. It helps align my posture, reducing strain on my lower back and hips and shoulders. I mean, I can podcast for hours now and be pain-free. And it was pretty reasonable. It was under $200, probably the best money I've spent, because, man, I'm not going to lie, I used to not look forward to sitting down to record these podcasts because that chair I was using sucked big time. But not anymore, Brandon. Hour and 32 minutes, nothing in this chair.
Nothing, man.
Nothing.
Hey, Russell, thanks for coming back on, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
We will see you down the trail.
Okay. Let me know. Thanks.